What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So one that we definitely had on our radar for the week of the 24th of February was the newest offering from Wretched Fate, Carnal Heresy. This again comes out on the 24th of February on Redefining Darkness. This band formed in 2016 in Sweden. Surprisingly not Stockholm, because this band really fucking sounds like they're from Stockholm.
They really do. That's putting it lightly, I think.
This is their second full-length overall. We were both giant fans of their debut, Fleshletting. That was just such a fucking beast of an album, and in a year where BLOODBATH didn't have an album, this was a worthy fucking substitute for a BLOODBATH album.
Definitely worthy adversary, and I still jam that record all the time.
It's fucking gross.
Yep.
Heading for a beheading, oh my god, that song fucking rips.
So to say we're fans of this band is pretty truthful.
And in case you didn't get the gist of what we're saying, this is flat out Swedish death metal, HM2 fucking buzzsaws. I mean, we're both wearing the appropriate fucking bands here. Yeah, this is my wheelhouse, and I was really fucking stoked for this one just because I get to hear that snarling, bestial fucking guitar tone and just some flat out disgusting Swedish death metal. And that is pretty much what I got here. This album is possibly even more aggressive and just feral than their debut.
Which was pretty tough to top. Opens up with the song Mind Desecrator, and I mean, we're talking about a couple moments of just some string noise, just like scraping a pick across a string, builds atmosphere pretty nicely there, and just bam, blast beats.
It's like they're just jacking in the studio.
Yep, just here we go, click, yeah, bam. And right into blast beats. And this is pretty much the pace it keeps throughout.
This is a very fast-paced album. Lots of fucking just pummeling fucking drums. The drum work on here is frantic. Like, this is very much, of course, in that old wheelhouse. Again, like Entomb, Dismember, Bloodbath. You know, the usual suspects when it comes down to HM2 death metal. But there's a lot of modern death metal in here, and I would even say like somewhat more like technical death metal, but played through a fucking Swedish death metal filter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like if BLOODBATH was a tech death band.
Yeah, like somewhere between Aborted and BLOODBATH is kind of that happy, or rather like disgusting, violent, brooding medium that is Wretched Fate.
And then speaking of techie, the song Utterance from the Inhuman Tongue starts out with this really kind of grimy melodic intro, and then just once again, bam, straightforward, no holes barred, blasty out of the gate, back to just technical riffing.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to hear more technical riffing with this tone, because generally you think, you know, not as though like Swedish death metal isn't technical in its own right, but generally it's mostly about laying down some just fucking, you know, brick heavy fucking riffs, and then just beating the living shit out of you with them, and then sort of moving on to like a different riff change. This is like a lot of like weird arpeggios and just quick fucking abrupt jagged transitions from blast beats to like breakdowns back to blast beats. It's a lot. It's very fucking busy. And this song, Utterance from the Inhuman Tongue, is maybe a little bit over 3 minutes. And it has a fuck ton of transitions.
I wouldn't even stage so much breakdowns yet at this point in the game, because while there are times that the riff slows a little bit, those drums never let up.
No.
I mean, he's just flying a mile a minute. Now, one thing cool that I will say about the drum work here is that he takes his approach to playing with these riffs in so many ways. Like, each riff has like 3 or 4 multiple drum beats with it. So he like weaves in and out of these riffs and plays everything on like a different accent, but there's like at least like 3 or 4 drum parts to each riff.
A good example of this interesting change in the drums, I would think, would be Umbilical Suffocation, which has some really fucked up atmosphere opening it up. Like, I don't know what's going on, but there are baby noises and slimy, sticky
like,
something or other.
Like gurgling baby, like a baby fucking coughing up breast milk.
It is thoroughly just unsettling and creepy as fuck. Like, it's gross. But then it just explodes into just ravenous, fucking disgusting Swedish death metal, and that is just kind of a nice break, because I was thinking about what the hell is making that noise way too much.
And it does it multiple times throughout the song too. Every time that there's a transition, it like transitions into this weird break where the music cuts out and then there's the baby crying behind this really creepy melody, and it's just it's unnerving.
Yeah, no, it's creepy. But in terms of that drum play, there are sections where they kind of lay on the same melody or same riff, and the drums will change behind it. Like, we'll go from a blast beat to like a kind of a groove, maybe to a D beat. But it's kind of interesting to hear this drummer just like, oh, I'm going to find a kind of a different thing to play with behind this riff. And speaking of accenting the vocals on here, first off, if you love Michael Ockerfeldt era Bloodbath, you're going to love this guy, because he sounds a lot
just like him, dude.
Dude, the enunciation, like his delivery, how he hits on different accents. Like, he'll sometimes follow like a fill in the drum pattern to say something. Like, his cadences, I think, are just super creative, and he doesn't seem like he gets kind of stuck in a rut. Like, he finds different ways to sort of kind of let the lyrics flow in terms of all the disgusting shit he's probably talking about. And it's kind of cool to hear those vocal patterns behind something other than a blast beat, because a good chunk of this is blast beats. The songs Harlots for Suffering and Upon the Weak both have like some slightly more D-beat driven stuff, which was something I kind of expected earlier on in the album.
Yeah.
Like, that's sort of the classic beat you hear to a lot of Swedish death metal. It's that sort of like crust punk fucking, background that, Swedish death metal has. And this, taking maybe a slightly more modern approach, it decided to get much more technical out of the gate and kind of forego a lot of, stuff that I kind of expected.
The D-beat groove actually doesn't really appear until you get towards the end of the record. Like, Upon the Weak, Morbid Testament, Spineless Horror, all were unique in the sense that they didn't take the straight out of the gate, balls to the wall approach. They slowed it down finally a little bit, which was something I was expecting way early on. I mean, it's fine, but they really kind of slowed it down and focused more on the groove here in these last three songs.
Because a good chunk of this album is a downhill race. It feels like it's continuously just picking up speed and fucking mowing over entire towns and shit. But, towards the end, like, you get a little bit of groove. And honestly, something else I was looking for just in terms of the songwriting shifting, you have more repeating riffs. Mm-hmm. Like, repeating riffs show up earlier on, and they're generally accompanied by some really solid, creepy melodies. Like, there's a lot of good lead melodies that accentuate the dark, spooky vibe of some of this when it's not just outwardly fucking aggressive, which honestly is like a good chunk of the album. But Upon the Weak is the first one that really slows down, and slows down for a good chunk of the album. There's a lot of sections on this album where it'll open up with like a nice groovy lead in. It's like, all right, I'm gonna let that riff sink in, and then it just immediately attacks and goes into the fucking blast beats. And not that that's bad, I love that shit.
I do too.
But there isn't like a lot of settling in on some of these songs where it's just like, all right, we had one full measure doing this, now we gotta do one full measure doing this, one full measure doing this, then this. And it just becomes this continuously shifting song that doesn't seem to revisit a lot, and that's kind of hard to digest. It doesn't give you like a big memorable hook.
I love the guitar melodies on this record. They are, for the most part, very creepy, very evil at all times, especially in Spineless Horror, where it plays this like creepy kind of siren melody throughout the song. And while it has these haunting melodies throughout the record, it does kind of repeat an awful lot.
They all kind of have like the similar vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like a spooky, like minor key, like little tremolo or like melody behind it. Like, and it's effective again, but they kind of feel similar. And again, with like the first half of this album being just transition happy and busy as hell, and maybe a little more technical than it needs to be, some of the songs really just kind of run into one another. There's not enough repeating moments, again, to, like generate like something super memorable. This really wasn't an issue on Fleshlighting either. I actually found those songs to be very catchy, very engaging, and they did transition a lot, but they would transition back and forth to like, big centralized moments in the song where it's like, all right, this is the part where people will fucking really remember.
Yeah, they had a catch and they had a hook to them, and they had memorable moments in them. And I'm not saying that these songs don't have memorable moments in them, like that crazy crawling riff in Harlots for the Suffering.
Oh,
that's almost like Cannibal Corpse style, like ascending and descending crawl riffs. The creepy melodies in Morbid Testament, where it has kind of a jam behind it, that's great, but it's a repeating pattern overall.
And Morbid Testament is a fucking awesome song too, and it does transition a lot. But the thing that I noticed about that one, and some of the other ones, is that one flowed better. It just didn't feel so rigid, because some of these transitions come out of nowhere. Like the opening track, Mind Desecrator, balls to the wall fucking opening. Like, it is just crushing it. gets down to like a groovier breakdown for a little bit, goes into blasts, and then it kind of shifts into this D-beat section, and it becomes kind of hard to find the rhythm again after that because the vocal pattern is, again, kind of odd, like he's accenting a different part. And I kind of ran into the same issue with Utterance from the Inhuman Tongue, which, well, I love that fucking song title. Actually, a lot of these song titles are really fucking good. It's just a little too busy for what it is. Like, I feel like a lot of these transitions are kind of needless. Like, I feel like they're transitioning for no reason when they could be just laying on a sick riff and just fucking hammering it home there. And yeah, that was kind of an issue on this album. But when you get down to the, latter songs, especially Spineless Horror. Spineless Horror is one of my favorites on here. There's a really cool isolated bass section where you can just hear the fucking snarl of this bass.
Just like droning behind everything. I like even the cool intro to that.
Yeah.
It bookends the outro to Morbid Testament, and it's got like this really like interesting melody and then some tribal drums, and it's very unique.
Yeah. And again, that's busy too, but the song flows well. There's a lot of stuff where I just feel like, they're trying too hard to, like, tech up these songs. And this isn't really a style that necessarily fits, like, super, super technical play. Like, there's a level of technical play to Swedish death metal, but generally, it's a style of death metal that is all about the fucking riffs.
Yes.
And while this album has it, again, I think it's just a little too busy for its own good sometimes.
Don't let us tell you that it doesn't have riffs. It's got riffs.
Oh, it's got riffs.
But it has a ton of them.
Yeah.
And while that's not always a bad thing, to make every song just riff after riff after riff after riff after riff with nothing else to latch onto except, oh, that was a cool riff, and then it disappears. I mean, you kind of want to add something to latch onto.
Yeah.
Maybe even revisit a cool riff, because there's tons of cool riffs that I think they could have gone back to, or I think they could have grooved on a little bit, and they're just there and gone. So, overall, I'm going to give this record 3.5 stars. Again, if you like Bloodbath, you're going to love the fuck out of these guys. We're talking excellent Swedish death metal. Again, riffs galore, the drum work is spectacular, the vocals are entertaining. It's a good jam. It does kind of dive all over the map a little too often. That's the more predominant aspect of this record is, a bunch of cool riffs, a bunch of blast beats, bunch of cool riffs, a bunch of blast beats. Like, it just needs a little bit something more to break it up, or a little bit more groove to hang on to. The fact that it doesn't really change its style until the last 3 tracks was kind of an issue for me. It's still really fucking good. I just think that they could have separated it up a little more, maybe broken it up a little more, and used some different dynamic to convey the awesomeness of these songs. Again, overall, 3.5 for me. I fucking liked it. I still fucking like this band.
I'm going to go with a 3.5 as well. This band is fucking awesome. Like, I really dig them. I just think they kind of pushed it too hard because this album moves around a lot. This album moves around like a fucking kid in a toy store that's been given a 2-liter of Mountain Dew and a puppy. Like, it is fucking flying and going all over the place. And granted, it's doing cool shit. Like, there's awesome riffs on here. The vocals are fucking sick. The drum work is fucking amazing. Like, every single part of this band, like, they're all doing a fucking great job. It's just, sometimes it doesn't come together quite as well as maybe it should. Again, their first album was definitely technical as well, but it came together a little bit easier. Like, I wasn't as transition happy as this. This is like kind of a good example of like less is more. Like, I think with, less of the knee-jerk transitions, I think this would have come together a little bit better because, again, when they lay on some sick riffs, they're fucking sick. There's no issues with the production whatsoever. Like, this sounds like a fucking snarling beast from Sweden because it is a snarling beast from Sweden. I like the downhill energy. I think that's really fun, but having some more peaks and valleys in this album, I think, would make it a more engaging listen. Overall, though, warts and all, I think this is a fucking nasty album. Like, it's a fucking beast. It's heavier than hell. Again, if you love Bloodbath, Entomb, Dismember, any of that shit. If you like HM2 driven death metal, this is that. It's just, you gotta fucking pay attention because it's gonna get squirrely on you within like a couple of fucking seconds. But yeah, 3.5 stars. Solid album. Again, Swedish death metal. Everyone fucking knows I loved it. It's pretty much like, all right, we don't even need to watch this video because he's going to like, oh, HM2 boner. that's what it generally dissolves to because, I'm a self-professed HM2 slut, and that still holds sway. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. our stores there. We are going to load up on more shirts and other stuff eventually. They said grenades would be fine, and that's awesome. That's all the permission I need.
We didn't fully specify what kind of grenades, so I mean,
the exploding kind.
It's possible. Also, we have a link down below to denverdeathfest.com. April 20th through the 22nd in Denver, Colorado, we are hosting the first ever Denver Death Fest. Thanks to our sponsors, thanks to Swinging Noose Productions, thanks to all the bands. We got fucking Pyrexia to play. I'm so stoked on that. It's been a really, really cool, awesome, wonderful thing watching this become what it is. It's turned into a beast of epic proportions, so to speak. I couldn't be happier with the way things have turned out. Come join us at, $25 for one day, $45 for 2 days, or $60 for all 3 days, 28 bands. Come hang out, come have a beverage, come talk to us. I'm sure we'll be floating around there all bright-tailed and bushy-eyed, trying to have a good time. Yeah, it's going to be a killer event. Go visit the website, denverdeathfest.com. Get yourself some tickets.
And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. The thanky part of the video where we just say the same shit and look really dumb looking in the camera.
Thank you.
Like that. Oh, definitely like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we mean it. It's fucking amazing doing this. It's amazing talking to you guys. Plenty of stuff coming up on the channel. We are going to get together next weekend and finally rank some Crowbar albums. But yeah, we have that ranking and then some other cool stuff that we've done. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff coming up on this channel. So once again, thank you all so much, and we will catch you later.